Welcome back to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. Today's story didn't begin with EVs, batteries, or satellites. It began with politics, leverage, and trust. 1 year after Donald Trump's return to the White House, tariffs hardened, rhetoric intensified, and technology slid squarely into the political crosshairs. What followed wasn't a loud rupture, but a quiet recalibration. Allies rethinking how they move data, secure infrastructure, and even build vehicles. From Canada's Arctic systems to Europe's EV and satellite strategies, dependence itself is now treated as a mechanical weak point. Here are the shifts reshaping the automotive and strategic landscape. From partnership to pressure, trust gives way. The earliest fracture wasn't caused by a technical breakdown, it was triggered by political signaling. In Trump's second term, tariffs on allies returned under the banner of fair trade, but the subtext had changed. Canada was framed as economically dependent, while the EU was treated less like a partner and more like a pressure point. For automotive supply chains, this landed like a mistimed ignition pulse. Modern vehicle production is a finely balanced powertrain. Canadian steel and minerals, European electronics, US assembly, then cross-border distribution. Tariffs didn't just add frictional losses, they introduced uncertainty into long-cycle planning. OEMs and Tier 1 suppliers began asking a deeper question. If trade leverage can be pulled unilaterally, what other systems are exposed? As technology entered the frame, the concern intensified. Connected vehicles rely on over-the-air updates, GNSS positioning, and satellite backhaul. In that environment, political neutrality isn't optional, it's structural integrity. And once trade pressure spills into technology, the risk no longer stops at borders. It concentrates around who controls the systems themselves. Tech tightens as leverage, power shifts exposed. That unease sharpened around Elon Musk, whose companies span EVs, launch systems, and satellite broadband. In early 2025, his increasingly political posture, public clashes with European regulators, barbed remarks toward Canada, and alignment with Trump-era narratives shifted the risk calculus for US allies. The issue wasn't ideology, it was control. When privately owned infrastructure becomes politically expressive, access itself can become leverage. In automotive terms, that's like letting a third party govern your ECU firmware. Fine until priorities diverge. Debates around Starlink had already exposed this vulnerability. Questions over service prioritization and throttling reminded governments that connectivity can be constrained. For militaries, logistics fleets, and increasingly software-defined vehicles, that's an unacceptable single point of failure. And as governments absorbed that lesson, one region felt the implications more urgently than most. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. This helps us reach more auto enthusiasts just like you. Now, let's shift gears and steer towards our next point. Canada's Arctic alarm, sovereignty meets satellites. Nowhere did that realization hit harder than Canada's Arctic. Satellite links there aren't a convenience, they're mission critical, underpinning surveillance aircraft, radar upgrades, drone patrols, and NORAD early warning systems. In that environment, reliability equals sovereignty. Ottawa's reassessment of Starlink use followed rising trade tensions. While civilian adoption remains broad, political trust eroded fast. Ontario's cancellation of a major Starlink contract for northern communities signaled a strategic pivot, not a protest. Enter Eutelsat, offering sovereign capacity, dedicated bandwidth under Canadian control. The reported $250 million cost mattered less than the principle. Raised at the G7 level, the message was clear. Allies are redesigning their systems, so no external switch can cut the signal. But Canada wasn't acting alone. This Arctic wake-up call echoed across the Atlantic. Europe cuts the cord, sovereign tech strategy. Canada's pivot isn't an isolated maneuver. It echoes a wider recalibration across Europe. The European Union has been increasingly explicit about reducing dependence on US-controlled digital and space infrastructure. Initiatives like Iris² are meant to guarantee that government, defense, and critical communications remain under European authority. For the automotive sector, this is more than geopolitics, it's systems engineering. Today's vehicles rely on satellite navigation, real-time logistics tracking, connected services, and continuous software updates. As Europe pushes deeper into EV adoption and autonomous driving R&D, owning the digital backbone becomes as important as controlling battery chemistry or motor design. European policymakers have also grown wary of how quickly US tech ecosystems can be influenced by political swings. From tariffs to regulatory retaliation, volatility has reinforced one conclusion. Diversification isn't ideological, it's risk management baked into industrial strategy. And when policy shifts at the top, the consequences eventually surface at the dealership level. Tesla under pressure. Politics hits the showroom. These strategic shifts are now visible at the consumer level, particularly in the fortunes of Tesla across Europe and Canada. Once the uncontested benchmark for EV innovation, Tesla has seen registrations slide sharply in multiple allied markets. Throughout the EU and the UK, year-on-year declines exceeded 1/3 in several countries during 2025. Canada followed a similar trajectory. In Quebec, long considered Tesla-friendly, registrations dropped as buyers pivoted toward European, Korean, and increasingly Chinese alternatives. Competition alone doesn't explain the speed of the reversal. Product parity has been coming for years. What changed was perception. Political alignment, tariff disputes, and diplomatic friction turned purchase decisions into statements of trust. For the first time, Tesla's brand baggage outweighed its technical edge in some markets. And that shift points to a deeper transformation underway, one that extends beyond any single brand. From indispensable to optional, trust erodes. The connective tissue between satellites and vehicles is credibility. For decades, American influence stemmed from being indispensable, technologically, economically, and militarily. But indispensability only holds if access is seen as stable and apolitical. What's happening now is subtler than confrontation, but far more structural. Allies are re-architecting systems so no single country or individual can act as a kill switch. Satellite constellations, EV supply chains, software stacks, and defense platforms are being diversified simultaneously. For the automotive industry, this marks a fundamental shift. Vehicles are no longer standalone machines. They're nodes in geopolitical networks. Connectivity choices are strategic choices. Supplier selection is a security decision. And once confidence erodes, it's far harder to rebuild than a factory line. Verdict: trust replaces horsepower as power. This was never just a story about satellites or electric cars. It's about trust accelerating faster than diplomacy. Canada's Arctic recalibration, Europe's sovereign tech push, and Tesla's retreat in allied markets all point to the same reality. Credibility now rivals capability. When partners feel exposed to political leverage, they don't negotiate loudly, they quietly adapt. For the automotive world, that adaptation is reshaping EV roadmaps, software ecosystems, and supply chain logic. American technology was once assumed to be the safest default. Today, allies are engineering systems designed to function without it. So here's the question for you, and for the industry watching this unfold. Is technological leadership enough if political trust erodes? Can automakers truly stay neutral in a world where connectivity is strategic? And will diversification make vehicles and nations more resilient or simply more fragmented? Let us know your thoughts and experiences in the comments. If you want to stay ahead of the next vehicle updates and deep dives, subscribe to Piston Pundit. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next pit stop. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.